Welcome to the Sonic Collective, a music podcast that explores a different album or musical concept each month, diving deep into its history, context, and impact on the music industry. Join our hosts, Alan, Scott, and Darren Scott, that's way too many Scotts, as they share their thoughts, insights, and personal connections to the music, inviting you, the listener, to discover new perspectives and appreciation for some of the greatest albums and music of all time.
Hello, music lovers, and welcome to the Sonic Collective. This is our second album in our One Hit Wonder series, and this is mine, Scott Coates' pick for June 2023. We're talking about the new Radicals' Maybe You've Been Brainwashed too. The album came out on October 16th, 1998, and is really just an album by lead singer Gregg Alexander, who's the only person that plays on all the tracks. In fact, he enlisted 28 musicians to play instruments on this one. So it's really an album of hired guns and songs written by him. It had the chart topper, You Get What You Give. And we decided to give this entire album a listen and think, is there more to this band or guy band than just the single? So let me throw it over to Darren Scott.
Yeah, interesting pick. And I think you had said when you picked it in your little bit how you had listened to this album a bunch of times and had owned it and had listened to it when it came out. And I guess the end of 98 was really a big hit. I think it was May of 99 when that song really shot up the charts, especially actually, I think here in Canada where we are, it was a number one. But I think in the States it was 12 or something like that. It didn't quite get the same effect, although it's still lingered. But when you said that, I actually thought about it. I'm like, obviously I know the song. And now going back and listening to the albums, I'm like, I definitely remember. I'm sure I gave it a couple listens, but I definitely never owned this album, and I definitely didn't remember much about it. A couple of the big, I guess, secondary hits. He had a couple other releases, but yeah, so I was kind of going in a little blank, and it was interesting. And hey, the song. It's a great song. There's no getting around that. It's similar to, we did Aha last pick, and you're like, damn, that's a great song. And a lot of the other stuff is quite different actually. And if you're not into that style, which isn't very much like Take On Me, it could be a big jump. Whereas, I thought with this, here's another good song again. And now the songs around it, the first thing I pick up is that there's definitely a change in sound. It's close in some, but just the level of production, or that song is such a good, well-written song, You Get What You Give, that it just really stands out. And I felt the rest of the album didn't really. Couple tunes are catchy. he is definitely like a pop song writer. And I think, maybe I'll get to that a bit. But he in general, I'm just trying to be really polite here, but I got to say, I actually, outside of this album, is a little bit catchy, and that song is amazing. I kind of hated him. I really did. I went back and listened to Intoxifornication, and that was actually based off his first album, Michigan Rain. I guess he used some of the same songs and put it on that next one. And oh my God, you listen to that, and he's horrible. There's another great YouTube channel called Todd in the Shadows, and he does this One Hit Wonderland. And I always, I'll go look to our peers, other podcasts and YouTube videos, and he does a really good breakdown on that. Highly recommended if you go check that out. But he kind of said it too. He's like, Gregg Alexander he just can't really sing that well. And he's like, he has that squeaky up and down, the falsetto thing, or like, it really worked on what you get, what you give, but then the rest, and he does okay on that album. And there's probably another layer of production there, but his earlier stuff, man, is fucking hard to listen to. It was just like, it was very derivative for me. It was just very like, he's trying to sound like Billy Corrigan or other people. And it doesn't work. He's kind of off key sometimes. And I realize we're focusing on this, but I'm trying to take it in as if a one hit wonder, maybe there's a back catalog or forward catalog from this album, but, there isn't. I won't get too much into the stats, and we can come back to me here, but, in general, I shouldn't have went back and maybe listened first, because I really started to hate him. Then I went and kind of re-listened to this album. And The bad thing was I can almost pick out. I'm like, oh yeah, he still kind of can't sing. If you're really listening to that album on a few songs as well, you're like, no, he's still a little rough around the edges. But again, I think he realized too, and in that YouTube's channel again, Todd in the Shadows, and he was saying, you know, I think he wanted out. He didn't want the limelight. He kind of chose it potentially. So. You know, it kind of made them that, and he had that big hit. And there was a question, you know, like, hey, I don't really want to be in this. I've got like the biggest hit I'm ever gonna get, like Wayne Gretzky it, retire 99 at 99, and you still had an 80-point season. You're like, fucking A, man. You know, off into the spotlight or whatever. Yeah, I'm still noodling on it a bit, but you know, why don't I just throw it over to Alan, and you know, you can touch on some things, and we can kind of come back.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to Todd in the Shadows. I love that guy's channel. The New Radicals. Maybe you've been brainwashed too. Man, I remember when this came out. I was living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, of all places. I was 14. We had just moved, and I found myself in a new country, going to a new school. I didn't have a lot of friends at the time, so I just spent most of my days watching MTV or listening to rock radio. Another shout out, Z104.5 The Edge in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But You Get What You Give was on endless rotation to the point where I found myself aggravated every time I heard it because like it was inescapable. And to this day, every time I hear that song, I'm kind of immediately brought back to when I was in ninth grade and feeling like a fish out of water, you know, trying to make sense of this new life in a new place. And we tend to view the past through rose-colored glasses. So I've grown fond of You Get What You Give because there's that nostalgia for me. And I'm sure a lot of people who listen to that song kind of are taken back to where they were when they first heard it too. But I think that song actually still holds up really well. There's a timelessness to it. And, you know, maybe I'm biased, but I really liked that song. So the only thing that even kind of dates it is towards the end when Gregg is, you know, dunking on Courtney Love and Beck and Hanson and Marilyn Manson. Those names aren't necessarily still in the cultural lexicon to the extent that they were back in 1998. But I digress. What about the rest of the album? Is the rest of the album timeless? Is it even any good? I want to start with their second single. It's called Someday We'll Know. And this is a ballady, kind of a pretty little breakup song that apparently was featured in a few movies and covered by a few notable artists over the years as well. And the chorus is catchy enough that you might even find yourself singing along to it. It definitely has a way of getting stuck in your head. But despite that, it really only hit the top 40 in Brazil, of all places. I think it ranked like number 37 or 38. Did not make any sort of a splash in the North American market, which I'm sure was both disappointing for the band and the label. One of my favorite tracks on this album is called Hope I Didn't Give Away the Ending. And it starts really slow and there's like 2 minutes of weird, like, I don't know, fluff, I guess, like filler lyrics or whatever. It's kind of weird, but he eventually breaks into a self-aware storytelling thing. The lyrics are captivating. And I think that's what I appreciate the most about it is just like this narrative, this story that it takes you on. And it kind of builds up in energy and plateaus at the end of the track. But, you know, it's definitely a weird song and I'm sure it's probably not to everybody's taste. The other song that kind of stood out to me a little bit was the first track called Mother, We Just Can't Get Enough, I think it's called. I'm honestly surprised they didn't choose this one as their second single to follow Get What You Give, because sonically it's actually a little bit more similar than any of the other tracks on the album. It's kind of weird, it's loud, it's energetic, and it's got a hooky tune. And, you know, if Spotify play counts are anything to be considered, it probably would have done pretty well if they had chosen it to follow up Get What You Give. This is the third most popular song off of that album with 14.2 million plays as of this recording. And that is eclipsing the next most popular song by over 11 million plays. Like there is a massive drop off there. So I think the bulk of the tracks on this album don't even exceed 2 million plays for context. So I don't know, guys. I mean, So maybe You've Been Brainwashed 2 runs at just under an hour. There's 12 songs on it. Some of them are pretty decent, but like none of them really seem to have the same energy or gravitas as Get What You Give, which I find disappointing. And I'm sure a lot of fans probably felt that way too. And especially like when you consider this was released in an era where you had to pay 15, 20 bucks for a CD just to discover you really only like the one song that you hear on the radio all the time, you know? I don't know, man. Like I'd say half this album features slower melodic jams that really don't get the job done. And Darren, to your point, Gregg is not the best of singers. And he can get away with it on the more upbeat, fun songs. But I think like when you get into the ballads, you got to have musical chops, some vocal chops. And, at times he kind of came out sounding like Billy Corgan. And, no shade on Billy Corgan, but if you've ever heard Smashing Pumpkins cover of Landslide, you'll know that it's not, it's not great. Anyway, that was the vibe I kind of got from a lot of the songs on this album. So, for my taste, the album's decent. Nothing really offended me, but if I'm being honest, there wasn't a ton of songs that I wanted to go back and listen to. I'm probably not going to listen to anything off of this album after we're done with the review, to be honest, except for Get What You Give, because that's a classic. Generally, I liked the storytelling and the lyrical aspects of a lot of these tracks, but, musically, it sounded like a standard alt rock affair from the late 1990s with a little bit of weirdness sprinkled in for good measure. It's all reasonably well executed, but yeah, despite that, I think it's kind of mid.
Yeah, good one, guys. I think there's going to be a fair bit of overlap on my thoughts on it. I did have the album because I was a DJ and I had to buy CDs, like you said, Alan, for that one single, right? And so I'm not so sure I ever listened to the entire album, but I did quite a few times this time around. And I agree with you, Alan, like Mother, We Can't Just Get Enough. Like it's a solid opener to me. And thinking about albums like this one, it's kind of groovy. It builds energy. It builds excitement for the album. And it is kind of weird that wasn't a single. You Get What You Give. As you said, the names he uses date themselves a bit, but otherwise this is still a great track. Like I listen to this probably a couple times a month. It's super catchy. I think it's a solid tune. I also picked out, I hope I didn't just give away the ending. The first minute plus, I don't quite get why it's there, but then it's kind of cool. And I actually found his voice on that track reminded me a little bit of like 70s Mick Jagger, early 70s Mick Jagger or something. It was not bad. I Don't Want to Die Anymore sounds almost to me like a bad Oasis song. Like it really sounded like he was trying to cover Oasis. Someday We'll Know. I think it's not a bad, it's a decent second tier single. It always reminds me of something the Muppets would sing. And I don't know why, but I get just every time I hear it, I imagine Kermit the Frog and gang singing that song. The back half of the album, I think kind of just blends together. The first 2/3, the tracks were a bit distinct. I think this is better than an average filler kind of album of that time. Like the 90s, you hit it, like you'd buy a CD, there'd be one or two songs and the rest would be absolute shit. So I think this is a bit better than that. Darren, I concur with you. Like some songs he sings well, and then there was other songs where, yeah, he's out of tune. And I just thought like, what happened to this guy's voice? Overall, the album kind of meanders. And I think I might be biased here because I read that he's the only guy on the whole album and it's all these hired guns, which may be influencing why I feel this now. But I feel like it knowing that it doesn't sound like an album, like it doesn't sound like a band, a cohesive package. It does just seem like a bunch of songs put together to kind of create a filler. And overall, the whole thing, it gets a bit juvenile at times, and I can't even define it any further than that, but it just felt, some of it just feels a bit amateur and juvenile. Maybe that's why it didn't go a lot further. He is a bit whiny at times, but I think it's, for this kind of time, a one-hit wonder kind of album. It's not a bad effort. There are, I think, half the album's pretty listenable, reasonably solid. But yeah, I don't think it's a mystery why New Radicals probably didn't go a lot further, because I'm guessing that Gregg here just didn't have any more tracks. He didn't have any more creative gas in it, and it sort of petered out. So for listeners, we don't have Scott G this time. I believe Scott G is in the Philippines or en route to the Philippines, so we will leave him out of this review. But on the last one-hit wonders, we just rated on recommend and overall. So Darren, why don't we go back to you for recommend and overall? What were your scores?
Yeah, and just quickly before that, and you just talked about it, that you think maybe he didn't have that repertoire, but actually he became quite a successful songwriter, and he's actually claimed to have 10 albums worth of New Radicals type music as well. So he's known for his pop sensibilities and the way he can basically compose the song structures. And yeah, in '03 he wrote Santana's "The Game of Love" there. So that was catchy. And actually, yeah, I was, again, that guy on YouTube, if you watch, he pulls up a few songs he wrote, and they're actually quite good when somebody else is singing. And maybe that too, maybe he's like, you know what, I'm an okay singer, but not the best. So why don't I just write the songs? But and him and what's her name? Brisebois.
Danielle Brisebois.
Thank you, Danielle Brisebois. Co-wrote an album and songs for a movie. I'm now forgetting the name of that movie, but the song was nominated for an Academy Award as well. So, I mean, basically, I think he's a good musician, a great songwriter. But really, the way I kind of summarize this, it was like pop. It's catchy, and especially that song, but it's meh to me. But anyway, recommend. I think if you haven't heard "Get What You Give," I'd recommend that one to 5. But really, as an album, I'm just kind of saying 3 because it has that one song, but you're not going to really miss anything. And overall, I'm just kind of I'm at a 2.5 there. I actually went down in an overall score because I think it's really that song. There's not a whole lot more to them. I think this is the definition of a one-hit wonder. I mean, they disbanded 6 months after they launched, so it was hard not to be, but yeah.
Alan.
Yeah, thanks. Look, did they deserve to be known for more than just that one song? I think like we discovered with last month's review of Aha's album, this question doesn't quite have a straightforward answer. Because the truth is, we'll never really know if the New Radicals woulda, coulda, shoulda had more hits or been bigger. Because like Darren mentioned, like Gregg disbanded the group. In fact, he disbanded it prior to the release of that second single. I think he recognized that he wasn't in love with the industry. He wasn't in love with being the front man of a band. And he really wanted to focus his creative energy kind of behind the scenes, writing and producing for other artists. It's entirely possible that the New Radicals could have gone on to have more hits or, made a bigger splash if they'd continued to exist, but they didn't. So, and you don't need to look any further than some of the songwriting and production credits that Gregg Alexander has, and Danielle Brisebois, in fact, too. We didn't really talk too much about her. She wasn't like the driving force on this album the way Gregg was, but she was featured on a number of tracks, and they were collaborators or whatever. She's got some songwriting credits under her belt, including, was it Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield? That, which is a massive song.
That's right. Yeah. It's a big song.
Yeah. I think she co-wrote that one, but still like, it's pretty clear there's a lot of talent in this band and featured on this album. But that being said, after listening to it a number of times, I'm not really surprised that one song kind of rose to the top, to that standout level of one-hit wonder, right? I mean, the rest of the album's just kind of slow and kind of ballady and kind of weird. And they lack things that really stand out against, everything else that was in the market, especially at that time. So I don't know. As far as scoring goes, the single stands the test of time, I think, as we've established. It's really fun. It's really catchy. That gets a 5 out of 5 for me. I'll admit I'm biased, and it takes me back to the good old days. But as far as the rest of the album goes, I'm giving it a 2 for my recommendation score. I don't think you're really missing anything. But if you're curious what the rest of the album sounds like, it may be worth checking out. And I think overall it's getting a 2.5, 2.5. It's a solid effort, but yeah, it's just kind of mid for me.
I love that you guys do all this extra research, and you've put me on now too. I'd never heard of that YouTube channel, Todd in the Shadows, so I'll check that out. Thanks. And I always love all the information you go to find. I hadn't heard of the other songwriter that was in his band. And it does sound, from what you said, that you've probably hit it spot on. They're good writers, decent musicians, not great singers. And I think I come in on the review about the exact same as you. Like, recommend. I struggle because it's not a bad album. It's also not an album that had any significant historical musical impact, particularly. But I would just give it a 2.5, and I'll give it a 2.5 overall. I just think it sort of sits in that mid range. Like, certainly one hit wonder albums could be a hell of a lot worse. It's reasonably listenable, but again, it didn't really change any course of music or anything like that. It's a bit of a blip. So 2.5 on recommended, 2.5 overall. So that is 2 of 4 one hit wonders down. Alan's picking next. Do you want to share what it is, or shall we keep us in suspense?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. It's going to be So Blue by Blue Cantrell.
I don't know who Blue Cantrell
is. Love it. Yeah. I know that one. That's good.
You probably do. Do.
Mm-hmm.
So Blue by Blue Cantrell.
I will be working on that and hopefully getting it out in the next day or two.
Exciting. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We hope you enjoy these monthly musical voyages. Hit the website, read up on Blue, So Blue by Blue Cantrell, Alan's pick for July. Figure out why he picked it by what he writes and records. Otherwise, enjoy the listen ahead, and we'll have the review of that at the end of July. Sayonara.
Hey, thanks for joining us on the Sonic Collective, where we've explored the music, the history, and the impact of some of the greatest albums of all time. We hope you've enjoyed our discussions and gained new insights and appreciation for the music you and we love. Join us next month for another exciting album, and until then, keep listening to great music.